Hello and welcome back to the Undercut podcast, and we are back to preview the fourth Grand Prix of the year, the Miami Grand Prix. It's like the good old days. We're nearly in May, and we're only just getting to the fourth Grand Prix. It's sort of like we're back in
But also the
2012.
fourth Grand Prix being Miami sounds odd.
Yeah, so weird. It used to. I don't know. I'm all out of kilter. That's how I am. How are you, Thiemo, Albus Daly, joining me this week as always?
Not as off kilter as you, thankfully, after that one. I am good, thank you. I'm looking forward to this weekend. I think Miami's an interesting one for us to go back into to kickstart the season, I suppose, despite the fact that we then go on another 2, 3 week break before another sprint weekend before going into a heavy summer season. So, yeah, I'll probably not be too far behind you in being off kilter sooner rather than later. If Canada and Miami don't get me this summer, speed rush of the European leg of the season will get me.
It's a very odd pattern we've ended up with because naturally coming into this we would have been a bit closer together with things. We'd have had a bit more of a drip feed of sort of a race, a gap, a race, a gap. Now we've sort of gone for a big gap, a race, a gap, and then back to a race again. It's
I've had practice with this after a few years of IndyCar doing this with the first round of the season and then going about a month break until round two for no reason whatsoever.
they're
But now
just like a
it's
prologue.
on the other foot and it doesn't feel right at all.
Yeah, it's I don't know. I think the prologue is nice, but we'll get through it. Anyway, we're here to preview the Miami Grand Prix ahead of going to the Hard Rock Stadium racing circuit, literally the car park around the track or around the base. Is it a football stadium, isn't it? I think Hard Rock
Be
mostly.
even worse if it was the car park around the track. I mean, we're already not too happy about some of the aspects of the Miami Autodrome, as it's, I think, called. But yeah,
We've got
oof,
this great
we are
racing circuit.
rusty.
We're using the car park. Yes, so we're off to Miami. We're at the Hard Rock Stadium. We're racing around the stadium. There we are. I've got all the right words. Obviously, again, like all the team headquarters and bits will set up inside the actual stadium itself. It looks kind of funky. It's a bit jazzy. It's a bit different. Importantly, note that the sole practice session for this weekend has been extended to 90 minutes to give teams and drivers more time to get up to speed with the tweaks made to the regulations over spring break. Obviously, one practice session, it is a sprint weekend, so it'll be practice, sprint qualifying, sprint race, race qualifying, race, I think is the correct order we do these things in.
Correct.
And of course, if you want to find out more about the tweaks that have been made over the sort of spring break, go and listen to our previous episode, which is out now. And that sort of details all the bits and pieces that have gone down over the spring break, regulations wise. Just sort of generally speaking, it's sort of a couple of tweaks to harvesting and power deployment, really, that should balance out the field and save some sort of janky starts and big speed deltas going into braking zones and certainly out of heavy braking zones as well. So those are the important bits. And I think this is again a sign that Formula One is being cautious with itself and sort of thinking laterally.
Yeah, it makes sense to do that in a sprint weekend. Obviously, in a normal Grand Prix weekend, we'd have three practice sessions. We don't have that here, so you'd have to find some kind of compromise. And I don't know how much the extra half hour is going to give the teams, but it's better than nothing. And again, with the gap that there is between Miami and Canada, if there's anything massively fundamentally wrong with the tweaks that they've made, they've got a bit of time to figure that out. But then it's also straight into another sprint weekend. I'm will be interested to see if Canada gets an extended practice session of 90 minutes. I can't see why they wouldn't, just because it's still early doors on the tweaks and whatnot. And if they make any tweaks to the tweaks, you again want to side maybe on the side of caution.
Yeah, one where they're going to sort of maybe do it. I don't see why they wouldn't, given how much of a weird gap we've had. And again, some of the regulations are being drip fed in from Miami. Some of them might finally arrive for Canada. We have yet to sort of find out which way round they're doing that all. So we'll see how it goes. I uh, um yeah, it's all yet to be proven. We're sort of very much back where we were at the start of the season going, how's this all going to look? I don't know. We'll wait and see. The vagaries of Formula One strike once more. Meanwhile, in Formula Two, they will, of course, be competing in Miami and Canada in a double header of new events and new tracks, new locations for the series. And this is very much a personal vendetta, seemingly to make his life as inconvenient as possible. Formula 2 has added Miami and Canada to those Grand Prix weekends, hindering Colton Herta from running in the Indy 500, which is, of course, practicing. They've had their first practice session today. We've seen Mick Schumacher out on track, and I think Catherine Legg is returning with Ray Hall, Letterman Lanigan Racing. So we'll almost certainly touch on the Indy 500 in another episode. But yeah, that's already building up. Colton Herta will not be tackling it this season because, of course, he has got Miami in Canada.
So I was looking at the timings for this, and it's again, you'd have to do a bit of a Kyle Larson when he was attempting the double a couple of years ago, but it is just about doable. I don't think they're going to do it, but I was looking at the timings for the F2 feature race on the Sunday and the start of the Indy 500, and it would be a bit nip and tuck, but it could be doable. But it's probably too close for comfort, unfortunately. And yeah, like you say, we've seen some of the open wheel test sessions for IndyCar already for the Indy 500, even though it's not quite May yet. They're counting it anyway. Like you say, you've got all of the regular drivers. We've got Mick in there. They're doing his rookie orientation session essentially, along with Dennis and Kukla, and then we get some interesting faces coming back, like Takuma Sato and Catherine Lake, who's with AJ Foyt actually this time around. She switches around a little bit, but again, lots of exciting things there. So even though he won't get to race in it, we will still have plenty of excitement, thankfully, for the Indy 500.
Mm. Because certainly if you're doing the 500 second, the 500 is often delayed a bit by weather. If it's a bit cloudy, if it's a bit overcast, if it's a bit damp and drizzly, it does buy you that extra bit of time. It's kind of annoying if that happens and you're doing the Coca-Cola 500 afterwards because it really eats into your changeover time. Um,
That was what happened with the last one a couple of years ago. It got a bit tight and squirrely for a minute there, but he did make it in the end.
Yeah, didn't do great in either of them though, which was the important thing to note there.
No,
No, he did terrible time in both of those, but we'll see. Colin might pull it off. We haven't seen him on the entry lists for it yet. I mean, given the Herta name is pretty big in IndyCar, I think they could probably find a seat for him if needs be. But yeah, there we go. Herta will also importantly get a shot in Formula One machinery running in FP1 for Cadillac in Barcelona. He'll also get to compete in a further three Formula One sessions spread out over the year. Traditionally, Cota, Mexico, and Abu Dhabi are viable candidate sort of testing positions. We've seen many drivers step into the machinery then. There's been no announcements, though, regarding Formula 3 just yet, who will have had a near 3 month break between Australia and Monaco when they next go racing. So that's going to end well.
yeah, we were talking in our spring break episode about how Formula One could potentially beat Formula Two's record of how soon can you crash in Monaco during a race after last year's impressive Turn 1 pileup. Formula 3 might give it a run for its money on the same weekend. It's gonna be an interesting weekend for Formula 3. I say that now, they'll all get through turn one cleanly, all 30 of them, and there'll be absolutely no incidents whatsoever. But it does seem like if it was ever going to happen, having what 3 month break between rounds would be the time for it. So, and a race I'm not envious for wants to not be a racing driver. I'm quite happy to watch from the sidelines on that one.
Yeah, likely going to be very jumbled as everyone barrels into turn one. Meanwhile, obviously, Miami is a bit of a home now for special liveries, a couple of sort of product launches, fan activations, and the like. And in no surprise, a couple of the teams have sort of followed that suit. Certainly, Mercedes with some special race suits, and Cadillac with a special livery for the weekend. RB also has some new merch. I don't know if that's going to be reflected in a livery for the weekend. Again, this is usually the sort of thing that happens about half an hour after we finish recording. So we'll wait and see. There may well be one. We could speculate that with relative certainty that in the next 20 minutes, RB are going to release something. But yeah, what do you think of the Cadillac livery?
Subtle in a lot of ways. It's a little bit blink and you miss it unless you're taking a good hard look at it. But it still looks good. It's rarely a special livery that doesn't have us questioning why did you make this decision. So they've got their first special livery out of the way and it's good, which is again not necessarily the aspects that we should be focusing on for Cadillac, but at least they're getting these things right, and we are talking about get the fundamentals sorted, get the marketing and all these sorts of things, get them up to speed so that 3, 4 years down the line, you're just doing them as if it's automatic and good start. I don't dislike it. You?
Yeah, I think it's a good thing. It's I don't know, I just like the fact that they're sort of leaning into the bits that make an F1 team an F1 team, and part of that is doing the special liveries, doing those little sort of activations and bits, and they've got elements of themselves up to speed. And again, I think they will have really knuckled down over this additional 5 week break to sort of have a look at a few of the problems they may have been facing in those opening three races and sort of adjusted those, tweaked those, got them back on track, and alongside it, we've now got a fairly nice looking livery as well to go with it.
Also, probably means we'll get special liveries at Costa and Vegas as they're the two American Grand Prix. I can't, maybe Mexico for Checo, um, but that's probably about it. But again, you don't need to do too many. I think we only see certain teams do it in certain places for certain reasons. It's not just, oh, we're going to Hungary and we're having a special livery. I don't think we've ever seen a special livery at Hungary. There's just no real need to. But again, it shows, like you say, they're getting into the swing of things, and yeah, special liveries are a bit of a characteristic now of Formula One and Formula One teams. So they're, like you say, getting up to speed with those elements of it, and that's good to see them making themselves at home in that regard.
Yeah, that's what we want to see and what we want to expect. Moving forwards, one of the more interesting activation fan moment partnership things is Williams teaming up with Marvel Comics in a special one-shot issue. James Vowles, Carlos Sainz, and Alex Albon come together to take on their biggest challenge yet, a battle with Doctor Doom in the middle of the racing season. Iron
Who's
Man Black.
apparently trying to disrupt the racing calendar. So I don't know what that means, what that looks like, but they
That,
they pulled that one out of somewhere.
yeah, that feels like it's got something relating to the real world woven into it. Yeah, Iron Man, Black Widow, Captain America, and a host of other Marvel stars will also support the team on their missions. I can imagine that if Spider-Man features in there, there's going to be one very envious Esteban Ocon who's regretting not taking that Williams deal. But yeah, well, it's not the strangest thing that an F1 team's ever done.
I did have to double check I'd read it correctly when that popped up earlier, though, to go, hey, what? What's happening there? Okay, sure, why not, I guess.
Yeah.
It shows that I think it shows the height and popularity of Formula One, though, especially with a team like Williams, who were on the back foot performance-wise this season. Let's put it mildly. The fact that you can still attract one of the biggest companies, franchises, and kind of biggest thing generally on the planet to come and do a collaboration with you and do a one-shot comic. It's it shows the power that Formula One has at the moment and the F1 teams individually. That if this is what one of the teams further down the pecking order can do, imagine what Ferrari and Mercedes could pull off if they wanted to.
This is very true. It's sort of this is the scale we're at now, where you can take one of the
The
sort of
subtle flex.
yeah, the comic books behind one of the sort of cinema's largest sort of ongoing franchises. You can partnership with the original source material of that and make your own mini comic as a Formula One team. I'm not against it. We'll see how it goes.
We've,
Also,
we've seen Godzilla with Haas, we've seen Marvel with Williams. When's DC getting into it, and which team do they go with?
this is a very good question. Although, if we're talking the world of films and Formula One, have you seen that the preview to the Oceans series is going to be
Mm.
set in the 60s around the Monaco Grand Prix? I think that's going to be very interesting indeed.
Oh, yes, in short, there's lots of thoughts I have on that one, but if they do it even half right, it's going to be good fun, and I have many ideas.
Hmm. I think there'll be a lot that they can implement with it, especially considering the fact that we've just had the Monaco historic, a great chance to film 60s
Well, that was
racing.
what I was thinking. We'd have heard if they were all round there now, but I imagine next year or the year after, depending on what the filming schedule is like for this, there'll be presents, let's say.
Yeah. Well, Monaco historic is only every other year, so it won't be next year, but 2028.
28 then.
They'll be back,
Plenty of time to.
get a script put together, get some details sorted, and then they'll be back in Monaco ready to film the racing bits, I suppose. The rest of it they can film
What's
throughout the year.
what's the bet that as I mean, if this is set in the 60s, say, then none of the Ocean's characters from before can really be in it because none of them are old enough for it to work. What's the bet Tom Cruise is trying to get in on that so he can find some kind of elaborate stunt to do with a classic F1 car around Monaco where he leaps from a hotel into a car or something suitably silly.
Ooh, that's a good idea. I know that Margot Robbie's attached to it. I don't know who else is attached to it as a project, so we'll wait and see. But there we go. That's my other bit of Formula One on film that I know of at the moment. Um, anyway, that's pretty much all the news out of the way in fairly short order, which gives us a chance to dive into some predictions for the Miami Grand Prix. We'll kick off as we usually do, completely ignoring the sprint, going straight to the Grand Prix qualifying pole position. Who do you think is going to be taking pole position after a 5 week break? Who's been training hard, keeping their mind sharp, focusing on what's still to come?
I think George Russell's been doing a Rocky 3 montage up in the mountains somewhere, and whatever you've seen of him on social media has just been all deep fake to distract everyone from what he's actually doing, which is training very, very hard so he can take on Antonelli.
I wouldn't be surprised by that. I think he knows he's got a lot to battle this season, given that his teammate has sort of
More than he thought he would.
yeah, has come in on form, firing on all cylinders, and sort of gone, okay, I'm ready to do this. Let's go. And yeah, a bit of a thorn in his side potentially as the season rolls by. I think he's going to be such a thorn in his side that Antonelli might take pole at Miami. He's done it before for the sprint race
For
last year.
sprint, yeah. I
Yeah.
was going to say, your prediction is not unfounded.
Yeah, so that was sort of largely what I was basing it off of this idea that Antonelli sort of is comfortable around this circuit. If we have a good weekend building into it, if again he spent a lot of time on the sim going over his data, going over his numbers, there's no reason to believe that he hasn't. He could be coming into this on a high. And also bear in mind what was our last Grand Prix? It was Japan, wasn't it? Which was won
Mm-hmm.
by
Kimi Antonelli.
yeah, the guy's on a hot streak at the moment because he also won in China as well. So
Yes.
yeah,
So yeah, but again, famously, pole position does not necessarily mean Mercedes are going to be guaranteed the race victory, which is why I've gone one path and you've gone the other path. You're sticking with Mercedes for
I'm
the
sticking with
podium places.
Mercedes. But I think there might be a bit of a swap. We'll start with your podium then first.
I think fourth time's the charm, and I will keep saying this in theory with any other team that isn't Mercedes until it happens, I suppose, and say Ferrari are going to get a victory. And while I would prefer Hamilton to get his first victory with Ferrari somewhere like Canada, just because of the optics and the history behind it, it would weirdly be on brand for him to get it somewhere like Miami. So Lewis Hamilton wins the Miami Grand Prix, George Russell in second, Charles Leclerc third.
Yeah, Lewis Hamilton getting his first win in Ferrari in a city that is equally as plasticky and fake as his current girlfriend would be on brand for the moment, I feel. Russell and Leclerc
You're not
second.
really trying to get us a nice commercial deal with the Kardashians, are you?
Um, I I can't see them buying a relatively scrappy Formula One podcast. I don't think they're our target audience.
I was more going for it be a fun cameo to see you in an episode of Keeping Up with the Kardashians where it's just a knock on the door and it's just three of them there. It's just you doing your best James May impression of hello.
Hello. Um, yeah, I can't see me appearing in Keeping Up with the Kardashians, and certainly not after that last remark. But George Russell second, Charles Leclerc third. They're the cars that we believe to, or certainly in the previous Grand Prix, were at the front end of the field, likely to be jousting for those podium places. So not unreasonable as picks. For me, though, I think Russell, much like you said for the pole position prediction, is going to come in sort of all guns blazing, ready to take the big points here. He's going to come in for the win, I think, with Hamilton chasing him down. I think that's going to be a really interesting battle to see because we've seen them race wheel to wheel in Mercedes, the two of them. This could be sort of one of the earliest instances we see of them racing very heavily wheel to wheel now in split cars. I think that's going to be quite fun to
And
watch.
for a win and a podium sort of positions because
Yeah.
before I can't really remember much of seeing them fight each other last year that much, if at all. But even when they were, it wouldn't have been for big positions. So that could be quite interesting indeed.
Yeah, there's an interesting dynamic and power to it, which I think could be quite something to look forward to. Meanwhile, Antonelli, I think, could round out the podium a solid points haul. He's got a bit of a gap to Russell at the moment. He'll just be sort of banking some solid points, keeping him sort of self in good contention, but just sort of having a good, clean race. He knows that banking points and just being consistent is also what wins you championships as much as firecracker performances. So I think this is where we could see sort of a slight maturation of Antonelli, where He might go a bit spicy at the start, but knows that it's better to keep his sort of performance level and consistent across the Grand Prix and across the season. And we see this sort of maybe slightly more logical version of Kimi to come. But again, we'll wait and see what happens as the race and the season goes past us. How quickly will it go by though? Fastest lap. I think we're both joined in this idea that there's going to be somewhere in the opening moments when everyone's got a lot of electrical power before the race goes dull, Antonelli's going to take the fastest lap.
I was thinking more in terms of he's chasing down Charles Leclerc in my scenario for third and just gets him some belter laps. He's kind of in a bit of a no man's land. I don't know who's in fifth, but they're not being a threat, and he's just trying to hunt down Leclerc after some ambitious strategy to get back up near the front.
Whereas I don't think in previous years we often saw the fastest lap set towards the end of the Grand Prix. I don't think that's happened in the more recent technical regulations though, because by that point everyone's run out of electricity. So the fastest lap happens when everyone's got the full 1,000 horsepower of petrol and electricity. So I think it will come early on when
I like to
Antonelli
do things differently.
Yeah, well, I think it'll come early on when Antonelli is sort of scrabbling to either pull out a lead or fight back from second place to the position he's lost off the start. Because obviously I predicted him for pole, but predicted him in third overall. So I think it's going to come in that point there where he sort of clears his mind, goes for a big push lap, puts in that fastest lap early on, and then just no one beats it for the rest of the Grand Prix. That's my theory. We'll see how it pans out. Then on top of that, we have some wild predictions. Thiemo, yours.
Suitably wild, as is my custom. Double points finish for Cadillac, but I am saying either both in the Grand Prix or at least one in the sprint and one in the Grand Prix, given that it's Cadillac and this is ambitious anyway.
I'll allow it. Are we saying that it has to be a different driver to score in the sprint and then the Grand Prix, or can it be the same driver scoring in two moments across the weekend?
Any of the combinations. I think this time next year I'll be more
More
strict,
pedantic
but
over it.
again,
Yeah.
considering how they're doing so far, double points in any way, shape, or form, they'll be happy. I'll be happy. Everyone will be surprised and go, "That was a wild prediction."
Bottas nipping 2 1 point results or something would be pretty good. Whereas, yeah, I think next season, by the time they've sort of mellowed out, got their feet under the table, we'd go, okay, both Bottas and Checker have to score at least a
Hmm.
point across this thing. But as it stands, 2 points playing results for either driver across the weekend, good enough. I've gone possibly also, I don't know if this is wild or not, considering how that chassis and engine combination is working quite nicely at the moment.
It wouldn't be if you'd said his teammate.
Yes, this was my theory. I think looking at the other side of the garage, there's still a lot to be proven from this driver. So I think a top six finish is a big ask for Franco Colapinto. I feel like it
I
could
think it
happen,
is.
but I think it's a long shot to be in the top six. Points, yes. Top six, big push.
Yeah, I'm not necessarily banking on that one just yet, but I will allow that as a wild prediction because we've only seen him score points once in his entire Alpine career so far, and that was thanks in part to a good chunk of the field not starting or not finishing said Grand Prix, and even then it was only for 10th, whereas Gasly was getting into the points on merit. So, hmm,
Yeah,
um,
that's my
to
theory.
build
You look at where he's finishing at the moment versus where you look at where Gasly's finishing at the moment. We're looking at sort of overcoming this huge disparity and not just inching his way in and getting sort of like 2 or 4 points. I'm sort of talking top six. So I think that's an ask.
build on one of the elements of our spring break episode just to round out this episode. I went just before we hit record and looked at the constructor standings for this season for Formula One, and then went and looked at the affiliated drivers in F1 Academy and thought, let's see if that makes any difference and maybe a bit more of a sizable difference to what it did for last year's standings. It does a bit rather. Not necessarily at the top too much. Mercedes, Ferrari, and McLaren are still the top three, just with more points, but doesn't really do much to help them out. Red Bull, however, jump up to fourth thanks to Alicia Palmowski, and Alpine, again thanks to Nina Gateman, jump up to fifth. Audi jump up to sixth thanks to Emma Kogelmeier. Racing Bulls get a big haul of points, but because of Red Bull, Alpine, and Audi don't jump up quite as much as they would, so they get 27 points. Haas drop all the way down to eighth place because they didn't have any points in F1 Academy, unfortunately, so they're still stuck with the 18. Williams still suffer from that same problem, ninth place, 2 points. Amusingly, though, Cadillac remain ahead of Aston Martin despite not having a driver in F1 Academy because they didn't have the best time in F1 Academy in China either. So you get a bit of a switcheroo. Red Bull sort of back up where you'd expect them to be, but only a handful of points ahead of Alpine. Haas, the biggest losers in this situation, so they'll be glad that we don't actually do that.
Yeah, it's always an interesting way of just sort of adding it in as a sort of an interesting thinking point, a talking pointer, the discussion you'd have down the pub of sort of where do these people rack up? How would the championships work if you combined them? I think it's quite fun.
But
Um,
again, I think Nina Gaben's still with the majority of the points at
yeah, at
at
Alpine.
Alpine. And now that I've got this quite early on in the season, I can keep track of it for the rest of the year now with relative ease so that we can get to it again in the winter break.
Yeah, it's easier to stay on top of it early on more so than it is doing it all retrospectively. It's a lot of maths when you do it all backwards. So that's my advice. Stay on top of it and enjoy it. Otherwise, that's all we've got ahead of the Miami Grand Prix. Thiemo, in the meantime, where can the people find you?
This week you can find me over on Formula Careers where I've got an interview with Rika Eros, and you can also find me over on It's Race Week where I have my three-part interview where I'm in conversation with Joan Conti.
Lovely stuff. And in the meantime, if you want more from me, the latest issue of Classic Car Weekly is out today. It's a bumper issue celebrating Drive It Day. I've got a brilliant piece in there celebrating 90 years of four-wheeled Morgans. And of course, there's sort of all other bits and pieces. We've got a celebration from Pride of Longbridge, 5 sports super saloons going head to head in a big feature there. And obviously, you can find me on the rest of the internet as at Jesse on Cars on Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok. I've got videos literally going out today on TikTok as well as on some of my personal YouTubes. So plenty to enjoy there. And I will be out and about next weekend at Retro Rides Weekend at Goodwood. So if you spot me there, come say hello. I'm out and about with some friends and some classic cars, larking around there, doing fun things. So yeah, plenty more still to come. Otherwise, we've got a busy weekend of the Miami Grand Prix still to come, including a sprint race. So remember that that's all going to be weird. And again, the timings are all a bit later in the day if you're in the UK. I think the Grand Prix doesn't kick off till about 9 o'clock or something on Sunday. So we'll be back on Monday. Well, we'll be recording on Monday evening. The episode will be out on Tuesday with a review of the Miami Grand Prix.